What are we talking about this week, Jake?
We are talking about Kitchen Sink.
Kitchen Sink, the film they don't want you to see.
The film they don't want us to know about.
Yes. Who's they, you ask? People who didn't like it.
Give me a little info here. Tell me, give me a little synopsis.
So this is straight from our friends at IMDb. A woman finds something quaint in her kitchen sink and feels strangely captivated towards it. That is vague as fuck.
About as clear as the short film is in its depiction.
The short film's a little clearer than that.
I guess that's true.
So, a woman finds a hair in her sink. I think we've all been there. That hair ends up being attached to a fetus.
Yes. A very hairy little man, starts off as a little man, and she puts it in the bathtub, and it grows into a larger, full-grown size man.
You know, that made me think of those foam dinosaurs that they used to make for kids.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. So, this woman, she finds some hair in her sink. It grows into a full-grown size man. A very hairy man, might I add. Is this how your parents came across you?
I hate this movie now. You just ruined it for me. And I hope you're happy.
I'm very happy. I'm very happy. So, Kyle, what's this movie about? What do you think?
Films are like dreams. I think that this film captures that really well with the way that there's this sort of stream of consciousness progression throughout the story. We keep the consistent motif of hair throughout, but the meaning of that changes. We start with this sort of birth metaphor where she pulls this infant out of the bottom of the sink, and it becomes a story by the end about her finding this lover.
Yeah.
And in a logical way, like a normal narrative film sort of logical way, it makes no sense. But as creatures who dream, it makes a lot of sense. I think that it works, though. That's the way that dreams work.
Yeah.
Is that your mind is constantly riffing on a theme, like a musician, riffing on a theme, and that's how dreams evolve. Where you might start out dreaming about the house, your grandparents' house, visiting your grandparents' house as a child, and you might finish the dream as a knight in King Arthur's Round Table. That's what I love about this, is that it does what films do well, pushing the boundaries of our imagination.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with that. And I like that one of the notes that I know you put down was Eraserhead romance. I like that a lot. I like that note. It definitely feels like early Lynch mixed in with sort of this longing feeling. I don't want to say loneliness, because the woman's not lonely, but she has some sort of sense of longing in her. And it's interesting how this piece of hair becomes the object of desire for this woman's longing.
When I first saw this film, my first gut reaction was, this person watched Eraserhead and they really had a good time with it. They really loved it. But, in stylistically, it very much feels like a Lynch film, like an early Lynch film, Eraserhead, his short films. But tonally, it's totally different.
Yeah.
There is a real sense of, as strange as it sounds with this storyline, a sense of romance, a romantic longing and being swept up in romantic feeling in this film that you would never find in a Lynch film, at least not in this way.
Absolutely.
And that's what I love about it, is that it, even though it has this Lynchian veneer, it's very much its own story.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's obviously lots of connections, lots and lots of connections to Lynch's earlier work. There was a distinct choice made to shoot in black and white.
That's interesting. I think that one thing that photographing this in black and white added was a sense of texture with all of these practical effects, especially the hair. You can get a sense of the texture of the hair,
Definitely,
because of the black and white photography. It emphasizes that because you don't have the color information to go off of, so you're stuck looking at things a little more abstractly. But yeah, texture is something that really stands out more in black and white photography, and it's important with the hair. And also, on a practical level, the effects probably looked better in black and white.
Yeah.
I don't know if you knew this, but apparently, for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, that was shot in black and white because the aging makeup on Elizabeth Taylor didn't look good in color. Basically, it looked good in black and white, but not in color, that's why they decided to do that.
That's really cool. Yeah, this film looks beautiful in its weird, gross, little hairy way.
Yeah, I love it. And I forgot to write down the name of the cinematographer.
The cinematographer for Kitchen Sink is Stuart Dryburgh. I think I'm saying that right. He's a New Zealand cinematographer.
I mean, what's he going to do about it?
What's he going to do about it? Exactly. He can't come at me, Stuart. He's done some great work. He did an Angel at My Table, In My Father's Den. Probably one of the most notable things that caught my eye was the piano. I find that interesting, working with another female director. That's cool, Jane Campion, right?
And I think he was nominated for an Oscar for that.
Oh, very nice. And he was nominated for an Oscar for that. Yeah, that makes sense. That film is beautifully shot.
The director, Maclean, has, she's a working director, but I've been sad to see that she hasn't had a chance to explore this style in her career much, as far as I could tell.
Yeah.
I think it's just a reality of trying to do things that are original. It's hard to convince people to pay for that.
Yeah, I think you mentioned an interview to me, right, prior to this conversation, where she talked about how she wrote how many films and how many scripts, and none of them got made just because they're too weird. So she spent years of her life just making scripts that never get produced.
Yeah.
I think, I can't remember how many it was, but like 3 or 4 or something like that.
Yeah.
So she spent like 5 years, she said, writing 3 or 4 feature scripts that never got produced. And she said something along the lines of, if you would have told me that would have happened, I wouldn't have wasted 5 or 6 years of my life. But here we are.
Yeah. It's, I think this is a reality that a lot of people who don't work in the industry are unaware of, and they think, you get to make movies, oh, you're doing fun, so therefore it's not work. Just think about it this way. With a normal job, you have a project that comes up in your work. Usually that project has an end date. Usually you get the satisfaction of it succeeding, or you get to the closure of knowing it failed,
Yeah.
You can't ever count on something happening in the film business until it's already happened.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And it's really sad because there's so many phenomenal directors that I've heard stories from of where the majority of their projects never see the light of day. I remember talking to Guillermo del Toro in the past, and him sharing that more than 50% of the projects, I believe he said, that he's written never even, saw the light of day. No audience member even knows about them, most of them, he said, because they're just on a shelf somewhere, sadly, which is kind of crazy to think about. It doesn't make me feel good, though. It's like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do then?
Yeah, pray to the film gods.
Yeah, offer a sacrifice.
I want to make a total detour
I love detours.
now.
Detours are fun.
This film has no dialogue.
Hmm.
What do you think that adds to the experience?
I think that the best part about having no dialogue in this film, or little to no dialogue in this film, kind of like Telltale Heart, which we talked about before, another short, is it forces the filmmakers and the audience to engage with these characters in a very physical, tangible way. We're learning everything about them, and we're learning everything about their emotional state through their actions, not their words, right? I've seen a lot of short films in my time, and the worst ones over-explain things. And watching what she does, like when it grows into a fully grown man, and she chooses to get a razor and start cutting away the hair, start shaving him. That's one of my favorite parts of the whole movie, just because it's such an interesting way of showing that a character wants to get to know a person. Because they could have had more dialogue, where they've been like, who are you? Where did you come from? But that would be kind of boring and not interesting, right? It might be kind of bad at that point if it's just one character being like, where are you? Where did you come from? How did you get here? Like, oh my goodness.
I guess that would ground it too much.
Yeah, it does make it feel more dreamlike. Like you were saying before, it almost makes it feel more dreamlike the way no one really says anything to one another, or specifically these two characters.
It's through body language.
Yes.
And almost a telepathy.
Yes, and it's the only time I've ever seen a character get to know another character just by shaving them. Before they even say, hi, my name is...
It's a very intimate act.
It is.
Because she shaves his whole body. She definitely gets to know him.
Does she leave? She leaves him with full bush, though?
Is that your catchphrase now?
That's my running gag. Is full bush. How much I love full bush.
Circling back to dreamlike films. You mentioned Coppola.
I did. Yeah, Rumblefish. I think everyone should watch that movie. It's not a horror movie, but it's a film that is shot in black and white. Ah, very interesting. There's a connection. And it feels very much so like a dream, very dreamlike. That film in particular, not to get too crazy into the weeds, but it's essentially about how fleeting time can be, especially when you're young, and how time moves so quickly. And my favorite part, actually, is how they shoot clouds, and clouds moving by in black and white, and the texture of the clouds shows the passing of time. And there's a very, very interesting scene in Rumblefish. Sorry, this is a Rumblefish conversation now. But one of my favorite scenes is that there's a scene in the film where there's no characters involved. They just shoot the daytime changing and watching these shadows from the staircase elongate against the building, the brick walls of the buildings. And that's to show the passing of time, and it's very interesting. And there's something very dreamlike about that. Anyways, in relation to this film, Kitchen Sink, I think it's interesting how these very dreamlike films oftentimes are photographed in black and white.
So our listeners may be wondering something at this moment. How is this a horror film, or why are we talking about this on Spooky Good Time?
I'm going to put it very succinctly for you, Kyle. It's a horror film because we fucking said so.
Succinctly, I get it. It's a pun. Succinctly. Kitchen sinkly.
Ah.
Yeah. Very good.
I'll put it in clear terms. No, it's not just a horror film because I fucking said so, even though it is because I fucking said so. It's a horror film because it explores the unknown aspects of human nature in an interesting way that collides a mixture of intimacy but also fear and ambiguity. And I think fear and ambiguity are probably the two most powerful aspects of horror. Not to mention that there is a lot of body horror elements to this. Man filled with hair all over the place.
I guess that we don't know where this is going the whole time. There's a sense of discomfort, danger almost.
Exactly. And I think there's something very primal about this film for some reason. And another topic we've talked on in the past is religion and horror, our very first episode. How does religion and horror tie into this short film, Kyle?
Well, one thing that I thought about while watching this was this hair is coming from this woman, and from this hair she's creating her lover. So it made me think of the story of Adam and Eve.
Definitely.
The story conventionally told as God making Eve out of Adam's rib.
Yeah.
Which might be a mistranslation. We didn't bring the Bible today, so we'll have to say that for another time. But my point is that I think that's just an interesting parallel, that she's creating this lover out of a part of herself. There's also in this interview that we read with the director, she mentions the myth of Pygmalion from Greek mythology, the sculptor who fell in love with one of his sculptures. And how, again, she's creating this being, basically, and she ends up finding a lover in that strange place.
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating story. It's a fascinating short. Highly recommended.
I do recommend it as well.
12 minutes on YouTube.
It's easy to find, easy to watch.
Easy to find. We should just link it in the...
I'll link it down in the description. Link in the description below. Smash that like button.
Yes.
Follow us now.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Please.
Yeah. You know, if we get famous from this, Kyle, the natural course of life of a YouTuber or some sort of internet personality is to eventually become an MMA fighter. I don't know if you know that, or boxer.
I thought we were going to release our Lunchables.
No. So first of all, we get the sports drink. We maybe some snacks of some sort.
Yes.
You know, $18 bag of cookies, famous Amos cookies, but made with organic ingredients. So we charge $18, and then we become professional boxers or MMA fighters. That's kind of like the natural course of life of an internet personality these days. I don't know if you knew that. Anyways, go watch Kitchen Sink. It's been a great time talking about this. It's been a great episode. Love it. Can't wait to talk. We have a lot more interesting projects we're going to be talking about very soon in the upcoming weeks. So I hope you rejoin us. Thank you so much for joining us today on
Christmas special coming up
soon.
soon.
Christmas specials. Ooh, I like that.
4 weeks of Christmas.
4 weeks of Christmas. Wish we had more, but 4 weeks of Christmas a year will do. Thank you so much for joining us today on Jake and Kyle's Spooky Good Time.
I'm Jake.
I'm Jake.
I think I'm Jake. All right, that's good.